this morning to discuss the Green Scissors 2011 report, a guide to offer lawmakers $380 billion in cuts. This morning, I'm joined with my colleagues who authored the report, Ben Schreiber from Friends of the Earth, Eli Lehrer from the Heartland Institute, and also local Pennsylvanians Anastasia Perbilski from the Kitchen Table Patriots and Eric Epstein from TMI Alert. For more than 16 years, the Green Scissors campaign has focused on ending wasteful government spending that also damages the environment. Over the years, we've built a strong case that the federal government can protect our natural resources, reduce spending, and reduce the national debt. For our most recent report, we partnered with Friends of the Earth and Heartland Institute, as well as Public Citizen, a consumer group. We identified more than $380 billion in wasteful government subsidies that are damaging the environment and also costing taxpayers billions. The Green Scissors report offers a roadmap for Congress on how to address our nation's fiscal problems. It brings together ideologically diverse perspectives and shows us that we can come to compromise and reach deficit reduction in a bipartisan fashion. While all of our partnering organizations have very different missions, goals, and beliefs, we all have come together to address our nation's budget concerns and our environmental problems that we face. Key to this report is addressing all forms of wasteful spending. Subsidies come in many forms, from direct spending on government programs to tax expenditures and loan guarantees, to below-market giveaways like royalty relief for our nation's hard rock minerals, oil and gas, and other natural resources. All areas of government waste must be addressed to tackle our nation's $1.5 trillion deficit. The recently appointed super committee, with which Senator Toomey sits, is tasked with coming up with $1.2 trillion in savings. The Green Scissors report offers them a third of those reductions in half the time. The report focuses on four major areas: energy, agriculture, transportation, land, and water. Each of these areas offer billions of dollars in cuts for the super committee. In energy, we offer more than $200 billion in cuts to conventional fossil fuels, nuclear energy, alternative energy, and each of these will be discussed in further detail by Ben Schreiber. In the area of agriculture, the report highlights more than $56 billion in cuts, covering subsidies to commodity crops, crop insurance, and the market access program. In the area of transportation, the report looks at the Highway Trust Fund, which is facing a huge shortfall, the maintenance backlog for our nation's infrastructure problems, as well as crop insurance. In the area of transportation, and finally in the area of land and water, our report identifies more than $15 billion in potential savings by addressing timber subsidies, grazing subsidies, and hard rock minerals. It also addresses wasteful water projects run by the Army Corps of Engineers and insurance subsidies like the flood insurance program, which Eli Lehrer will discuss. Lawmakers across the political spectrum should be coming together and using these examples of wasteful spending and unnecessary tax breaks to address our fiscal problem. We urge Senator Toomey and the Super Committee to use the report and its recommendations and help get our nation's fiscal house in order. Thank you very much. I am going to move next to Ben Schreiber, our partnering organization and also author of the report from Friends of the Earth.
Thank you, Autumn. My name is Ben Schreiber. I'm the tax analyst with Friends of the Earth. Friends of the Earth is a nonpartisan environmental organization. We're part of a federation of environmental organizations across the world, which is the largest grassroots environmental network in the world. We've been doing this report for 15 years now, and we think that this is a particularly important time. We're really excited that we were able to author this report with Taxpayers for Common Sense, with the Heartland Institute, and with Public Citizen. One of the most important things to note about this report is that it's a consensus document. These are cuts that, even though we have diverse groups with really diverse views about the role of government and environmental protection, we can come together and reach a consensus on these massive cuts And all of these are programs that would help the environment just by eliminating government action. So it's a really exciting opportunity. One of the, I think, real benefits of having a diverse coalition is that all of these subsidies that we're talking about right now, they're in our laws because of powerful special interests in Washington, D.C. There's no reason that a subsidy gets on the books other than the fact that someone with lots of money and power in Washington is there to push for it and advocate for it hard. And so it really does take a diverse group of people to come together and fight subsidies. And we have a really unique moment right now with the super committee to make change. A perfect example of how effective a coalition like ours can be is the corn ethanol debate. Right now we give out $6 billion a year in subsidies for corn ethanol. Corn ethanol is bad for the environment, it's incredibly wasteful for taxpayers, but that's $6 billion a year that we're giving out to the corn industry. In 2010, our Congress actually passed an extension of that $6 billion a year subsidy. And they did it with very little debate by attaching it to a package that included the Bush tax cuts as well as unemployment. You know, this was done basically at the bequest of the corn industry. By coming together with a diverse bunch of groups, including animal agriculture, environmental organizations, consumer, taxpayer organizations, this year, less than a year later, 72 senators voted to eliminate the corn ethanol subsidy. That subsidy is supposed to end at the end of this year. The House didn't vote to eliminate it yet, so it's not off the books. But that subsidy is scheduled to be eliminated at the end of this year. This is the type of subsidy and the type of program that just makes no sense. And it's a start to getting the reductions that the super committee needs and that our country needs. And so by working together with this diverse coalition, we can make concrete gains. Yes, Friends of the Earth is a big government organization. We think that there's a role for environmental protection and that government intervention is necessary. But let's start with the common sense solutions, the low-hanging fruit. So thank you all very much for coming, and it's an honor to be here with the rest of our speakers.
Next, we're going to hear from Eli Lehrer, also a co-author of the report. He's from the Heartland Institute.
Thank you very much, Autumn. Thank you very much, Ben. I'm Eli Lehrer from the Heartland Institute. The Heartland Institute is a libertarian, free market think tank. We don't mind being called conservative. Our positions on many issues are very different from those of Friends of the Earth and Public Citizen. Nonetheless, we could not be more proud or more honored to be part of the Green Scissors Coalition. The Green Scissors report, as Ben said, highlights the low-hanging fruit, the things that all of us can agree upon, the things that government is doing and simply should not be doing, things that are terrible for human life, terrible for the environment, and terrible for all of us. The Heartland Institute joined the coalition this year because eliminating these subsidies, eliminating the things that government does that benefit nobody, is the best, easiest, and most important way that we can begin to bring the overlarge, overbearing government under control. That is our objective, and it is part of our general campaign to advance human liberty. We are a small government organization. We want less government. And reducing these types of subsidies does it. Let me talk for a minute about some of the subsidies that are the most egregious and problematic. These are the subsidies for insurance. Insurance is intrinsically an activity for property and for casualty purposes that is best done by the private sector. And without exception, the government-run property and casualty insurance programs are awful for the economy and awful for the environment. Take the flood insurance program. This is entirely a subsidy for people to build in coastal areas where you simply should not build. It does very little good for a state with only a modest amount of coastal exposure like Pennsylvania. It's an enormous subsidy to Florida. And while providing that subsidy, it has encouraged enormous destruction of wildlife habitat, while simultaneously running up almost $18 billion in debt to the U.S. Treasury. The crop insurance program is even worse. This program, which initially was promised to make money for the federal government, now absorbs $6.5 billion per year of our money, of tax money. And for this, it raises food prices, hurts small farmers, and encourages development of land that is environmentally sensitive and beautiful. It's a program that simply should not exist. The Price-Anderson Act discourages the development of inherently safer nuclear technology and provides an enormous subsidy to a nuclear industry that simply should not have it. And I say this as a fan of nuclear power. The Oil Spill Liability Trust Fund is at least as bad and maybe worse. Quite simply, these are just some of the things that government is doing and should not be doing. The Heartland Institute is proud to endorse this report, proud to have written it, and overjoyed to stand with our partners in calling for cutbacks to these government programs that are bad for the economy, bad for the budget, and bad for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. Next, we're going to hear from local Pennsylvanian Eric Epstein from TMI Alert.
I don't know how local I am. I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. You know, maybe that's good or bad. Ted Christian over there has a copy of our comments. I'm from 3 Mile Island Alert. We're a safe organization, energy organization, formed in '77, 2 years prior to the accident at 3 Mile Island, and I think it's ironic that we're meeting here under the shadow of Limerick somewhat. At any rate, we're going to be real brief, real targeted, and just deal with what we believe is nuclear pork. Over the last 10 years, the nuclear industry has spent $600 million on lobbying and donated $63 million to campaign contributions to convince lawmakers that nuclear power is the answer to America's energy problems. This is the same energy industry that told us nuclear power would be too cheap to meter. This is the same industry that Forbes described in 1985, and I quote, as the largest managerial disaster in business industry history. A disaster on a monumental scale. The utility industry has already invested $125 billion, this is back in '85, in nuclear power. Only the blind or the biased can now think that most of the money has been well spent. Between 1943 and 1999, the industry gobbled up $151 billion in subsidies. So what has changed to convince the American taxpayers that nuclear power is the answer? $600 million on lobbying and $63 million in campaign contributions. Whammo, President Obama set out to give the industry $36 billion in guarantees. We'll look at a couple things that I think that the report also included. One is nuclear waste, very expensive enterprise. Every plant generates 30 metric tons of waste a year. That's waste without a forwarding address, right? So we have 70,000 tons of nuclear waste stored at 35 sites throughout the country. Just to give you an idea of the exposure for the taxpayer, the GAO concluded if that waste doesn't go anywhere, the taxpayer is on the hook for between $34 and $225 billion. And if you look at my statements, we'll break it down by reactor. When it comes to nuclear power, this is like corporate socialism meeting voodoo economics. Joe the plumber is most definitely exposed. Try buying nuclear power homeowners insurance for a community like ours that lived through a nuclear accident. You can't, but the industry can. The Congressional Budget Office, CBO, in 2008 basically said when it comes to building new nuclear power plants for a government-backed guarantee, 100%, the risk is very high, well above 50%. And a report issued on May 7th concluded the risk of default by private companies from the expectation that a new nuclear power plant, quote, from the CBO, would be uneconomic to operate because of high construction costs relative to the electric generating sources. So let's look at the facts on the ground. Look to the north. Look at PPL. Bell Bend wants to build a new nuclear power plant. PPL wants to build a new nuclear power plant. Please look to my paper. When they announced this in 2008, they told us the cost would be $10 billion. 1 year later, the cost was $15 billion. That's unbelievable, unbelievable. And they will tell you to your face that it's not going to get built unless we bail them out. By the way, this is the same company that got $2.86 billion in stranded cost for cost overruns at the Goose Factory. And again, look at the footnotes. One of the things people, we're looking at federal subsidies. One of the things people didn't look at in Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania taxpayers are on the hook for $8.36 billion in stranded costs. $2.86 billion associated with cost overruns at what is known as the Berwick nuclear power plant, and $5 billion in cost overruns for that plant over there at Limerick. So let me conclude by quoting one of my partners. And this will seem odd since I'm normally categorized as being on the left of the elevator. We did a press conference last year with the Cato Institute. And I just want to paraphrase the Cato Institute, because this was the only thing we agreed on in the whole day slugfest, by the way. And this is their answer to nuclear power. This is one day after George Bush unleashed his energy policy, May 18, 2001. Jerry Taylor, Peter Van Doren, really good guys. Quote unquote, aren't conservatives supposed to be skeptical about having the federal government pick winners and losers in the marketplace? And the final analysis, the nuclear industry is purely a creature of the government. The administration needs to practice the free market rhetoric that it preaches and put away its nuclear pom-poms.
Thank you very much, Eric. Finally, we're going to hear from Anastasia Perbilski from the Kitchen Table Patriots.
Thank you very much. My name is Anastasia Perbilski, and I run a grassroots organization called the Kitchen Table Patriots. It started in 2009 with the outreach of the stimulus package, and it's amazing that once I got involved in the grassroots movement that swept our country, you start to see the federal government at a different level, and it's like peeling back an onion, and you start to understand the subsidies. And you start to see how there's corporate bailouts and there is crony capitalism all throughout, you know, Harrisburg as well as Washington. And you know, Jenny Brown, who did not win commissioner, actually met with the Kitchen Table Patriots, and her opponents used meeting us to run an ad against her. What do we stand for? Limited government, fiscal responsibility, and low taxes. So I don't understand what the Democrats were thinking when they attacked Jenny Brown on those issues. I hope that this county, Montgomery County, doesn't regret their choice. But I just had to get that out before I started my what I'm here to talk about today, which is House Bill 1380. It's a federal bill, and it's called the Nat Gas Act. And, you know, I see Pennsylvania as having true potential to get us off the dependency of foreign oil. We are sitting on so much natural resources in Pennsylvania, and the natural gas industry can completely change Pennsylvania for the better. I was out in Williamsport in the summertime, and I was there 20 years ago on a drive out to Pitt, and I could not believe the changes. So I believe in the natural gas industry 100%. What I want to talk about today is HR 1380, which is crony capitalism. And I see crony capitalism as someone rigging the political system and trying to use the government and the taxpayer for personal profit. I have a problem with that. The free market enterprise system is not about the government picking winners and losers, or about individuals manipulating the system to take a shortcut to profits off the backs of the American taxpayer. The Pickens plan, which is HR 1380, is about all of these things. What I'm most troubled about is the Pickens plan is T-Bone Pickens is the largest shareholder in the clean energy fuels, which owns and operates 200 natural gas stations across the country. Why should we, the taxpayers, assume the risk while a billionaire like T-Bone Pickens gains to profit? When asked on the Stossel show, I don't know if anybody saw the Stossel show where T-Bone Pickens was there, he said, it's not that much money. It's just $5 billion. That's not a lot of money. So we need this. I think that what we're dealing with here is HR 1380 it's a compilation of new rules, grants, and tax policies that only further skew the energy marketplace towards the energy sources favored by the federal government rather than the consumers. How's that ethanol working for you all? Are your food prices any higher because there is now more demand for corn than there would have been without a government mandate and subsidizing the ethanol program? I actually was talking to someone who has family out in like Midwest, and they can't get corn to eat. They asked him to pack some corn from Pennsylvania and take it out to Kansas because basically they're growing these farms to grow corn for ethanol. This bill would provide approximately $5 billion in subsidies over a 5-year period, and but the official budget estimate has not been conducted yet. So I just want to conclude with that I do believe in the natural gas industry, and there was a movie, Gasland, that has scared people in this country, and it is full of lies. You know, so here's what we're combating here. Natural gas can save Pennsylvania and help, get us off of our dependency on foreign oil. But we don't need subsidies, and we don't need people going out and creating documentaries that are full of untruths. So I again believe that in the shale industry, in the first 6 months of this year, had a 60% increase over the amount of gas reported for the last 6 months of 2010. 1,632 workers have been produced in our state. We are actually growing, and I want to see this industry shine and get us off our dependency of foreign oil, but we do not need to bail out or subsidize the industry. I think it could stand on its own 2 feet. And that's all I want to say about 1380. Call your congressman. I know there's a bunch of congressmen in Pennsylvania that are on this bill. I want to thank Congressman Mike Fitzpatrick for withdrawing his name from the bill. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasia. Again, I'm Hanna. I'm with Taxpayers for Common Sense, and we're here discussing the Green Scissors 2011 report. As you can see, the groups that have spoken here today, we cover a wide range of diverse missions and purposes, and have many issues that are very important to us. But what we've all come together around is that right now we need to make important cuts to help get our nation's fiscal house in order. We face a $1.5 trillion deficit, and that can't be ignored any longer. The Super Committee and Senator Toomey have an opportunity to make a real difference here and propose a solution, a bipartisan solution that brings together diverse perspectives, like we've done with Green Scissors, and address our nation's fiscal problems. We hope that the Super Committee, which have received the report, pay attention to these important recommendations and listen and hear the remarks from our folks here in Pennsylvania, that Senator Toomey hears those remarks, as well as the rest of the 12 members in the Super Committee, and that we can make a real difference here. Thank you again for joining us this morning. All of our speakers will be available for questions, and feel free to get a copy of the Green Scissors report on the Green Scissors website, greenscissors.com. Thank you very much.